Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I'll be discussing my book review of John Grisham's novel, Sycamore Row, the second book in the Jake Brigance series. I have not read political thrillers before. Not political thrillers, I should say, legal thrillers. I've not read legal thrillers before. But my friend, Timothy Mickles, who I used to work with, he encouraged me. I was encouraging him to read, and I said, if you read a book, I'll read whatever that book is. I don't care. I'll read it. So if you read it, so he picked the book A Time to Kill, and I said, well, I guess I have to read that now. And I went and I actually bought all three books: A Time to Kill, Sycamore Row, and the third book, A Time for Mercy. I haven't read this book yet, but I definitely will read it this year. And he read A Time to Kill, and I read A Time to Kill, and it was superb. It is in contention for one of my favorite books of the year. Seriously, one of my favorite books of the year. I loved it. And so I was super excited to go into Sycamore Row, but a bit nervous. I wasn't sure, did I just like the story of A Time to Kill, or do I really like John Grisham's writing? Do I like the genre as a whole, or do I just like the plot line that he created into A Time to Kill? So when I picked up Sycamore Row, I was worried, but from the beginning, this is a quick, fast-paced, excellent thriller of a book that I just plowed through in only a couple of days, not just because I had time on my hands, but because it was such an engaging read. I had to find out what was happening. And whereas all the writing was on the wall for A Time to Kill, you pretty much knew exactly how it was going to go. I really didn't know how this would go. I knew the general ending, because I think you can piece that out, but there is a why behind this book that I didn't know that was amazing. This book centers around a wealthy man who has committed suicide. He's hung himself on a tree in his land, and he wrote a holographic will, which he sent to to a lawyer he's never met, Jake Brigance, whom is the main character of the last book. And in this will, he has completely cut out his daughter, his son, his whole family and grandchildren. He has cut out everyone except 5% to the church, 5% to his long-lost brother that he's never seen in 50 years, and 90% goes to his black housemaid, who has been helping him for the last 3 years. Obviously, everyone assumes scandal, everyone assumes that he was under undue influence, and everyone's trying to get a piece of the pie, because this will, it's eventually revealed that there is over $20 million available in his estate, and everyone wants a piece. But Jake Brigance, our heroic lawyer, he has one goal and one goal only: to defend the will, to defend the estate of this gentleman, Seth Hubbard. So he spends all of his time trying to fight against everyone. He has to fight against not only the vultures, lawyers who are representing the kids who feel scorned, but he also has to defend against the lawyers of the maid. The maid hires her own lawyers and doesn't trust Jake Brigance to get her the money. He's trying to get her the money, but he represents the estate and not her, and so she hires her own lawyers, and it's a big mess. And this has a lot of the similar legal aspects of the information and data gathering that A Time to Kill did. But A Time to Kill, everyone knew everything behind it. They just had to defend and find a way to present their argument, whereas they had to actually find information in this book, and so it was much more fact-finding, which was really interesting. This book is generally much lighter than the predecessor. This book deals with 2 rapists who are murdered in a very racist county, whereas this book has to deal with a white man leaving his black maid a fortune. And while there are elements of racism in both, this is a much heavier book with significantly more language and significantly darker tones. There are still dark tones and still some language in this book, but nowhere near as much as in the first one. So if you're a bit queasy on language, or on dark tones, this might be a better read for you than the first one in some ways. I enjoyed the process of reading Sycamore Row better than I did enjoy the process of reading A Time to Kill, but the themes of A Time to Kill are much more important and much more prevalent. And yet, the themes of Sycamore Row are still also very important and prevalent, but just the way they're presented is better in A Time to Kill. So I have to give the edge in my rating system to this one, even though I enjoyed the process of reading this book so much more. Until the end, this book is a much lighter read, but it does take a very dark turn really quickly. And yet, it's okay because chapter 46 in this book is one of the best chapters of any book I've ever read. The way that he crafts that chapter is brilliant, and you know something's coming, but you don't know what, and it just builds and builds, and you start having a slow realization. And then in what's essentially the last chapter, or the epilogue of the book, everything makes sense. And there was something pointed out, and I was like, that's why everything's coming together. It was superbly done. I am so impressed with his ability, not just to explain the legal aspects of the case well, but also his ability to tell just an engaging story. Without the law aspects, this is still an engaging story. It's centered around legal thriller stuff. And the questions he raises are so important and so well done, and he's able to tell it in such a story that anyone can read it, any adult that is. It is not for kids, but any adult could read this. As I mentioned, it doesn't really have the breakneck pace that book one did, yet I still felt propelled to reading it fast, which is good for Grisham. It shows that he can make stories engaging without making them action-packed. This book does have a section that does drag a little bit. It's about the 2/3 point, and that is featuring the character of Lucien Wilbanks, and he has a side quest, a side quest in this book. And it's important to the overall narrative, but it still feels like a side quest, and that part wasn't as enjoyable to read. And that kind of gives it a little bit of a demerit. The characters in this book were also very excellent. I really liked the characters. You had, in particular, a character, Reuben V. Atlee, who was so distinct in his characteristics. I remember Judge Noose from the first book as being, very much just trying to run the courtroom properly. But Atlee has so much more personality to him that I really enjoyed Atlee in this book. You also have Lucien Wilbanks is, I think, written better in this book, and Harry Rex Vonner also continues to have funny lines. But I think that Ozzy, the sheriff, is probably my favorite overall character in the series, because he's just so, he does things, and I'm like, yeah, get him, Ozzy, yeah! He puts a smile on my face. I like Ozzy. I would vote for Ozzy for sheriff. There were several elements of the legal system that irked me, though, and he explains why they exist. And there are good reasonings, but there's also reasonings why they shouldn't exist. And it feels like it's a hamper on society. And it's like, if you just cut this out, the case would go much more quickly. The jurors would be much easier to make decisions, all that type of stuff. I wish that those things could be changed, but evidently they're not going to be. And there are things that even cost the taxpayer money in this book. They talk about all the legal fees, and I'm like, why are you spending so much on this stuff? It's ridiculous. All the money that the government spends on legal stuff in this book. It's just ridiculous. Nonetheless, it's still a superb, wonderful book. I just read a science fiction book recently, Manta's Gift by Timothy Zahn. Also superb, wonderful book. I have a review for that as well. And so I read these back to back, and I just had two absolute bangers of books, and I'm so happy, just so happy that I'm just having such a good streak right now with books. And so I give this book a 9.8 out of 10. An excellent, excellent sequel that delivers at the end. You have to read to the end in this one. Do not DNF this one. Read it to the end because the ending makes it so worthwhile. So if you've read this book and you know the ending, leave your comments down in the comment section below and let's discuss. Also, if you're interested in reading this book series, let me know that down as well, and I can have discussions with you on where to start. Also, if you've read other John Grisham books that are not part of this Jake Brigance series, let me know. I want to read more about John Grisham's books, and I don't know where to start because he has so many standalone books. So let me know down in the comments section which of them are your favorites and which ones I should start with. And please subscribe to the channel and like this video and comment because that helps me in the algorithm. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.